Okay. Hi, this is John Blyler, founder of JB Systems, and today I am at CDNLive 2019. I have the pleasure of speaking to Simon Butler, who's the CEO of Methodics. They're a leader in traceability and IP lifecycle management for the enterprise. Hi, Simon.
How you doing, John? Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you, too. Let's get right into it. I have a couple questions. So for this year, 2019, what semi-trends do you see, especially in the area of IP lifecycle management, and especially in the area of standard design and manufacturing tools for our environment?
So obviously the automotive space is a huge deal. So most companies have some activity around that. Many of our customers do, for sure. And standards-wise, I guess ISO 26262 is the main focus. Of course, that implies all kinds of traceability and general FUSA, functional safety awareness in the design process. So that's something we're definitely focused on.
Which of today's standards do you think has a greater influence on IP? And again, thinking about the design and verification tasks.
So I'd probably bring up ISO 26262 again. I think that's the main focus for semiconductors, at least. And yeah, that's really brought a lot of awareness around functional safety, a lot of new factors into the design process that weren't there before. And I think there's real opportunities for CAD vendors that are trying to address some of these issues, specifically around traceability, requirements management. Yeah, I think there's some good challenges there.
If I remember right, there's a part of 26262 that deals with the tools themselves. Are the tools constructed in such a way that they would actually provide reliability? I can't think of the word right now. Do you have anything on that?
Yeah, so certainly the tools in some cases need to be certified as being ISO 26262 compliant. And that's a process that we're looking at. So far, our customers haven't required that. So we haven't been through that certification step. But I don't think it's always required. I think it's something that you need to pay attention to. But we're really in the business of ensuring traceability and tracking the assets around the bill of materials, rather than delivering the final actual design assets. So far, that hasn't been a requirement on us, but certainly something we're looking at.
Let's switch gears just a little bit here. What is new in the engineering, some might say the art of SoC design partitioning? And really, this question is about embedded systems. It's a hardware-software question, but really the software part's embedded.
Right. Yeah, so I think what we're seeing is that, the software-hardware kind of co-design challenges are becoming more prevalent around the automotive space, autonomous driving. And people are definitely looking for solutions that can do traceability and asset management and lifecycle management in a way that brings the software and the hardware into the same kind of analysis. So that's another area that we've been looking at. So our tool is being used by the hardware guys, it's being used by the embedded software folks, and it gives you a common platform to manage these assets and trace their quality and state all the way through the life cycle.
Let me follow that up with a slightly different question. So there are IP management tools in this space. Some require that you adhere to a sometimes very large database system. Others are a little more focused on the internet, the RESTful and different different APIs that allow you to kind of get into any system, any tools or whatnot. How would you say that Methodics handles that kind of those two sides?
Right. Yeah. So definitely the latter. You're right. There's traditionally been the use of a PLM system, for example, to manage the entire life cycle from requirements all the way through to manufacturing. But we found in the design phase of the life cycle, we found that there's a lot of interaction with different verification tools, physical design tools, simulations. So there's quite a diverse ecosystem around the different tools in use there, and our strategy has been to provide ways through APIs of linking in the results and linking in the quality from those other systems, and giving you a single source of truth, a single place to go and see the overall quality or the state of a particular IP. Yeah, definitely APIs, RESTful APIs. That's a huge focus for us and our customers. Yeah.
Excellent. What challenges will IP designers and testers face with today's emulation and simulation tools? So this is really a question on digital threads, perhaps even the digital twin, as we see the IP heavy in the design and development side, and try to be matched up with the manufacturing side.
Right. Yeah, I think this idea of a digital thread is something that's been important for a while. The challenge in the semiconductor space is when you get to the design part of the process, it's kind of broken. At some point you've got requirements, and when you deliver those for implementation and to iterate through the various versions and bills of materials you need to get to the final product, there's a disconnect between those systems and that process and that overlaying kind of traceability exercise. So that's what we bring to the table, we hope. Is a way of basically completing that digital thread and giving you a more design-centric way of capturing this metadata and delivering that metadata up into a higher value PLM in some cases, where not higher value, but something that has a broader scope across manufacturing as well. But what we do well is managing the life cycle from requirements through to the actual implementation, and we feel that gives you a leg up in terms of time to market, better communication, better reuse of existing assets across the company. So we're basically tracking the ecosystem of all the IP across the company, its state, its quality, its context, and giving you one place to go off and find IP that is relevant for your new project, and track the project through its life cycle and identify risk as you close in on your tape up.
Sounds good, and it really does boil back to requirements, no matter how we slice it. The traceability of requirements from the top to the bottom and even out the middle. Here's a fun thing I didn't know until this interview. Simon is one of the musicians at DAC, and you're going to be playing this year too, right?
Yes, I am. We play last 2 or 3 years. We've played at DAC. We have a jazz quartet. It's actually a jazz trio, I'm sorry. It's the Methodics jazz combo. And we played Austin a couple of years. We played San Francisco last year and Las Vegas this year. So, yeah.
You go Las Vegas, right? Yeah. Is there like a funky, interesting application that you've been using, your management tool suite with?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the tools that we interact with, we've traditionally been using, for example, in the version control. Git is becoming more and more interesting to people. We have some very large customers focused on Git, and that brings its own challenges. So there's been some fun and games around Git that we've been able to solve and productize. And also, the point at which the kind of design methodology and the infrastructure that we provide is becoming more blurred as we bring in more and more tools and more capability that let you build out flows, integrating your requirements tools, bringing in your simulation tools, accessing the coverage database, and doing all that in a way that gives you a single dashboard for a version or an IP, or tracking the bill of materials for all the versions of for the project. There's been some really interesting integration challenges we've faced and been able to solve. Yeah.
Are there any areas outside of IP lifecycle management where you're starting to see traction, to see interest?
Actually, there is, yeah. So one area of focus for us outside of the IP lifecycle management stuff is something we call Warp Store. And Warp Store is basically a way of cloning large data sets and delivering metadata-only clones to users in the context of a workspace or perhaps a build. And that really helps customers with managing the volume of data that they're running up against. in these larger designs now. And it complements the IP lifecycle management technology, because as part of our process, as part of our methodology, we deliver a workspace to the users. So now you have a way of delivering very lightweight workspaces to users. And if you look inside that workspace, let's say it's a 200 gig workspace, the Unix accounting still comes back with 200 gig. But if you look under the hood there, you're actually only consuming a few kilobytes of metadata. So it's a much more lightweight way of delivering workspaces to users on a project, of managing the builds and going through the delivery of the assets that you need to run the builds into the verification or development flow. So yeah, so Warp Store is a huge thing for us. And there's another use model where, in the same kind of idea, trying to bring large data sets up to the cloud for kind of cloud bursting scenarios, where you've run out of resources on a particular project and you're close to tape out, you need to run that final simulation. Being able to offload some of that to the cloud is something that a lot of customers start to find attractive. And again, the challenge is, how do you get your data sets up there quickly? So with Warp Store, that really enables that kind of flow. So yeah, so I think in the cloud burst and on-prem workspace management, data set management, we've really got some interesting technology.
Just as a follow-on from my own curiosity, so it seems to me there's lots of issues with, as you say, the volume of data, pushing it up to the cloud and dealing with it there as a solution. Do you run into trouble with licensing? I'm sure you have a way of dealing with that.
Right. So clearly, there's some tasks that don't lend themselves to massive parallelization. So the challenge there is to manage your license, manage the available resources. But there's so those you've got to be careful with. But there's some certain subset of the problems that are regressions perhaps that you've run using a C program or something that doesn't have as restrictive licensing requirements, and those can be run given as much parallelism as you can afford resource-wise in the cloud. So any of those any of those problems, any of those scenarios need a way to deliver the basic data set to the recipient platform, whether it's the on-prem NFS mounted workspace or up to the cloud, and Warp Store can handle both of those.
Okay. Well, thank you, Simon. This was very interesting.
My pleasure. Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
See you at DAC.